lean back, that way it gets the edge of the cliff, it's not on the side.
We're good?
Is that across the street from Bambi?
Yeah, it's a little town.
We can't be hurt, we make sure we got, I'm coming back.
Staff restrooms have to wait till
All right. Greetings, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is the September 3rd, 2025 special Board of Education meeting and workshop for the Chico Unified School District Board of Education. I'm calling this meeting to order now. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed. And per Government Code 54953, Board Member Hayes is joining tonight by teleconference. Member Hayes, are you with us?
I am.
Excellent. That must be serious. Everything's working. Right on. All right. Will you please all join me in rising for the flag salute? Salute. Flag. Thank you. All right, hope you're having a good Labor Day. Well, we are back to business. We're looking at the consent calendar. Are there any items from the consent calendar that need to be pulled for further discussion? All right, I don't see anybody.
Tom,
Yes.
Erica had sent me instructions that I need to include a general description of the circumstances relating to the need to appear by teleconference, and that's that I was exposed. My granddaughter tested positive for COVID, and I'm experiencing symptoms. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then also, my husband, who is 18 years of age or older, is in the house with me, but he is not in the room, and I don't anticipate that he will be, but just to disclose that to the public.
Appreciate that, and we certainly wish you good health and speedy recovery to you and your family. All right, that said, I think we had no one pulling an item off consent, so we're going to go ahead and ask for a motion regarding, actually I should say, is there any public comment regarding the consent calendar? Seeing none. Do we have a motion regarding the consent calendar?
I move approval of the consent calendar. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Member Robinson, a second by Member Olson. We are going to do a roll call vote. This is our first vote. Do all votes need to be roll call? We have one member on the, yes, okay, so all votes tonight will be roll call. Have to get that, please keep me in mind. But we will go ahead and start with Member Hayes.
Aye.
Olson, aye.
Lando, aye.
Robinson, aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Gonna go ahead and move on to item 3, which is our big topic for discussion today. A workshop regarding Chromebooks and technology use, specifically regarding Chromebooks in our schools.
Right.
Take it away, please.
Okay, thank you. As Tom mentioned, our workshop topic tonight is titled Chromebooks in Chico Unified School District. It will include survey summary, requested research, our use, and safety. So we hope to give a comprehensive review for the board members tonight. I do want to mention that myself, Tim Karras, and John Vincent will be
Tyler, is that second one, is that you doing that one?
Two screens.
I'm on the right.
The timeout.
I'm
You're on the
moving the
right.
slides on the right.
So I'm gonna look at the middle.
Oh, do you want me to?
The right?
They're separate.
The one on
I've
the
asked
right.
these before, I'm so sorry. I wanna make sure I look at the right thing.
You wanna go ahead and do the slides? So let's do the one on the right, that's the one Tim is doing.
I can look here. Perfect. Okay. As I mentioned, we can go back a step. Okay. Presentation will have four main components tonight. First is talking about the survey results from the spring 2025 feedback that we received from students, parents, and teachers. The second piece will be research findings. Our board member liaisons did request for research items on education technology and best practices for implementation to be included. Third piece is actually the use, what we do with those Chromebooks here at the elementary levels and the secondary levels. And then fourth will be our safety measures. John Winston will guide you through a lot of the comprehensive pieces that Chico Unified has in place for our controls and parental controls as well. I'm gonna introduce Tim Karras, because he'll talk about the survey results, pretty comprehensively to you from these groups of students and families.
Good evening. So following the April board meeting where this topic came up, the first order of business was to administer surveys. So we did parents, parent guardians, and teachers right off the bat, but we waited a little bit for the kids because they had other surveys to do. But those were all completed by the end of May. So it was end of the school year, and we actually had a fairly decent turnout regarding as far as how many people responded. So the surveys, all three of these surveys focused on these four items: time on Chromebooks at home and at school, the use of Chromebooks for homework, the knowledge of monitoring systems on the part of parent and teachers, and students' awareness of the monitoring that's happening in their classrooms. Okay, so really I'm going to go over students first, and really these results matched with what we had heard anecdotally from students and teachers and talking with folks around the district. You can see in elementary, around 40% report 30 to 60 minutes of in-class Chromebook usage. Please keep in mind these are 3rd through 5th graders, so TK2 is not here, okay? So about 40% to 30 to 60 minutes of in-class usage. At home, there's either no use or short bursts. About 40% of students report homework requiring Chromebooks. At the middle school level, students report an increasing reliance on Chromebooks for schoolwork. Over 50% of students report at least 1 hour a day of class use. And at home, 1 to 2 hours a day for homework, generally. Moving up into the high school, we see usage increase with extensive daily usage, often throughout periods, with the majority reporting at least 1 hour a day. At home, very, very light usage for non-school activities, and they're really expected to manage their devices with less oversight than the elementary and middle school students. Moving on to teachers. Elementary teachers are using Chromebooks for building foundational skills as far as reading and math go. They are doing their best to minimize non-academic distractions with Chromebooks, and the daily use in class reported by teachers is generally over 30 minutes. When we move to middle school, Chromebook use becomes more integrated and independent as research, collaborative projects, etc. The majority of teachers estimate less than 30 minutes of required usage in a class period. Moving on to high school, Chromebooks take a larger role. They're used for a wider variety of tasks throughout the student's day. And like I said earlier, the students are expected to manage device use responsibly and independently. And I'm going to talk about the monitoring that happens at all the levels in the program. So as far as parents go, the lowest usage rates at home were reported by elementary parents. 70.
Dan?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had raised my hand,
Oh.
I don't think you saw it.
No, I'm sorry.
On the elementary, usage, so it says daily use in class generally over 30 minutes. Do you have anything did it say, like, what that means? I mean, daily use over 30 minutes could mean, 30, 31 minutes, or it could mean, hours. So
Correct.
I'm just wondering about that as a,
The choices
I
were.
wondered if there was any better breakdown, and then I'm assuming that at the middle school, it's saying that, that's 30 minutes per class, correct?
Yes.
Less than 30 minutes per class,
Yes,
is that correct?
that's correct. And going back to your elementary question, the kids were given time spans to choose from, so 30 to 60, 1 to 2 hours, 2 hours plus. All right, so let's go ahead to parent perception. So 75 to 88, and what those percentages means is third grade was 75 and up to 88 in other grade levels, and they're reporting less than 30 minutes a day on non-school activities at home. So very minimal usage reported by the parents. It matches with what we heard from kids. 88% of TK1 parents and guardians report less than 30 minutes a day on school activities, with the amount of time increasing through the elementary grades. Use is almost exclusively for schoolwork, and non-school use is rare. Moving on to middle school, over 40% of parents report 30 to 60 minutes or more a day on homework. Less than 30 minutes a day by the vast majority of parents is what's reported for non-school activities at home. At high school, over 50% report 1 to 2 hours a day or more at home on homework. Parents at a very high rate report less than 30 minutes a day on non-school activities. So the reporting that we're getting is the usage for non-school activities at home is low relative to the in-school usage.
On a school Chromebook.
Right. Yep. So monitoring is an important piece of what we do, and John will talk about that more in detail later. We were pleasantly surprised by the amount of parents who reported utilizing securely to monitor their child's usage. You can see 60% were reporting some usage. And then with teacher use of Go Guardian, which is the teacher tool that teachers use to monitor in-class Chromebook use, we heard from teachers that 74% of them consistently use it. In middle school, that increased. The monitoring increased in middle school and then goes down pretty significantly in high school. So as far as the students' perceptions of monitoring, again, 40% report homework required at the elementary levels. They report higher teacher monitoring and more frequent screen breaks. Middle school, the homework increases, teacher monitoring is slightly lower as the student perception and less screen.
Tim, we need the next
Oh,
slide. I'm sure
oh,
we're-
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry. In high school, nearly 90% report homework requiring Chromebook use, and there's less teacher monitoring and fewer screen breaks. So, key takeaways from the survey. Engagement with Chromebooks increases through the grade levels. Homework is the main driver of Chromebook use amongst secondary level students. Younger, as far as parent perceptions go, parents of younger students express more concern, while parents of older students report less concern. We do acknowledge that we see in the data that we need to do a better job talking about filtering systems, getting that message out to our parents and our teachers. And in fact, we have added more guardian assistance this year already. A balanced approach is what this data calls for. So promoting a balanced, purposeful Chromebook use model and continued parent education.
I hate to take you all the way back, but
Yeah.
look at that first student slide, if you don't mind.
Right.
Yeah, so in column 1 there, 35 to 43% report 30 to 60 minutes. Are we looking at 35 to 43% because that was the single biggest group?
That was the biggest group for each grade level.
Okay. And then, were there, and I'm sorry to ask this, and I
No,
didn't
that's-
ask you beforehand. What I would love to know is whether there were any patterns. I assume there were some people who reported more use than that. And I guess what I'm looking for is, do we know, or did you notice any patterns in groups of students who might be using the Chromebook more in the elementary devices? Like, do we know if these usage numbers we track along any of our targeted subgroups?
We have not done that analysis.
That'd be good.
The finest grain data we have is on the grade level.
Got it.
And with that, I'll turn it back over to Tina.
Okay. So the second piece of tonight's presentation centers around the research items on educational technology and best practices. So we know that technology decisions can be guided by our current research and best practices, with the goal that and fifth grade students may take their Chromebooks home for homework assignments. And while in the classroom, Chromebook use is supervised. John will talk more about that. We use things such as Go Guardian within the classroom that teachers are really adept at monitoring these. For academics, our Chromebooks have a place in independent learning pathways during center time. An example of that is in our elementary grades during language arts or reading times when different groups of kids are pulled for activities and content. Other students may be using some of the pieces on Chromebook that complement the program that they're using. Kids also in elementaries are dipping their toes in research and project-based learning using Chromebook support. And we do acknowledge that state testing does begin in third grade for our kids. And the testing moved to the Chromebooks, gosh, how many years ago now?
Quite a while.
It's
8,
been
9.
and then a large handful of years that they moved from bubbles on the paper to Chromebook use. So there is a need to make sure that our kids can use the Chromebooks to show what they know when it comes to that state testing piece. And again, you've heard me say it twice before, I'll say it again. They're looking at a balanced approach, multiple modes of instruction, including Chromebooks. Oops, go back one to those slides. And varied assessment methods. We, as the in-services team, have worked hard last year and into this year about supporting professional development and our teachers with really looking at instructional practices, those great things that teachers do that are a variety of ways to reach our students in their learning experiences.
Teachers got her hands.
Yes. Sorry, teacher.
It's okay, it's okay. Thank you. On the testing, are there accommodations for students who wish to use paper and pen, or, paper and pencil rather than the Chromebook?
We are 100% online testing. There are accommodations within the online testing system that we can use, but we don't do paper pencil testing. The tests themselves are computer adaptive, so they're depending on students' answers to know what the next question is going to be presented to the student.
Great question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Learning for secondary. At our secondary levels, we look at expanded access as was reported before in the survey results. Kids do take home the devices for assigned homework, and they do have digital textbook access. The days of just having textbooks as books has progressed as time has moved, and a lot of the textbooks that we have to purchase are digital form as well, so kids can access those at home.
So are they only online, or are they available to students both online and in traditional book form?
We have book form. My understanding is a lot of kids enjoy the digital access as well because they don't have to take home the books. And they have it with them wherever they go, whether it's going to go to grandma's house after school one day, or I go here, they have access to it.
As long as you've got electricity and
Yeah, yes.
I think they do have access, when I was teaching, they did have access, and several of my students in like academic support class preferred the book, because
Good afternoon, board. I appreciate you giving me some time to talk about how we keep our kids safe on Chromebooks. It's something that really is one of the most important things that we do, and we work hard to make that happen. To get this task done, it takes multiple layers of software to cover all the different pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into, on the next slide, well, before I start that, let me go to this slide. So this slide is about why Chromebook. So we chose Chromebook because they're so easy to manage compared to Windows machines. Windows is a big operating system that has a lot of components that are hard to manage. So Chromebook is a much more sleek and stripped down version of an operating system that's much safer to use. So that's why we went with Chromebooks. For instance, Windows has 60 to 80 patches that are released every month to fix vulnerabilities, whereas Chrome generally gets a patch every 3 months for a handful. So Microsoft Windows is much more apt to be hackable, so that's why Chromebooks are a much better choice for us. So the first layer that we use to control Chromebooks and to manage them is called the Google Admin Console. It is the base layer. It allows us to manage our students, what they have access to, what apps they have access to set policy, to create a walled garden. To create a walled garden. So for instance, with a walled garden, they can't email people outside of the district. They can only email teachers and others inside the district. And others outside can't email them. So it gives a safe environment where kids don't get in trouble. It's also a granular control, so we can make controls based on grade level or even by groups of students. And it does a great job of integrating into other systems as well.
Just want to triple check about the walled garden. So if a student had a personal email address, could they, via Google, could they log into that from the Chromebook?
They cannot. So we have that set up so that only Chico USD accounts can log into our Chromebooks. It's actually on the login screen. It says chicousd.net. That's grayed out. You can't change it. So you can only use it for Chico Unified.
Thank you.
Yeah. So once again, this is the base level. Everything really stacks on top of this. When we need to make a change, a broad change to how we manage our Chromebooks, this is where we do it. And I need to say, there's a lot of settings in this, and Google changes these settings periodically. So every couple of years, we have a company called Amplified IT come in, and they do an audit of our environment to make sure that everything is set up optimal. There's nothing that is being missed. Because sometimes Google changes the admin settings because they're always adding things. So it gives us peace of mind knowing that everything is set up correctly when they do an audit. So the next layer in this is GoGuardian. So GoGuardian is the piece of software that our teachers use in the classroom to manage all the Chromebooks in the class. So if you have 30, 35 Chromebooks in your classroom, how do you manage those when all you're seeing is the back of the Chromebooks? So with this software, it allows you to do all kinds of cool things. You can pause all the Chromebooks so that the kids can't go do anything. You can set it up so that it only sends out a handful of websites that they need for an assignment or for a test. You can go back and look and see what the student was doing 15 minutes ago. If you think they were off task, you can go back and see what they were doing. Or last week, go back and see what they were doing if you heard there was an issue. So it gives all kinds of different controls in the classroom so that teachers can manage all those devices while they're in their class. Any questions on GoGuardian? So we move on to security. So security is our filtering software. So originally, the district used what's called Palo Alto. Palo Alto is a brand of filter that really is top of class for businesses, for industries. And that's provided by DCOE. So we've used that forever for our Windows machines, for our Chromebooks, whenever they're in the district. So we purchased security separately from Palo Alto because that way we had something to put on Chromebooks when they left the school district. So when they took them home, they'd have filtering at home as well. So traditionally, it was set up so that Palo Alto is used in the district, and security is used just at home. And it was that way for a long time. So as time's gone by, Palo Alto really is not meeting that need. It's made for industry, and it does a great job of what it does. But security is made just for education. It's made just for Chromebooks. And so we made a change. I know we had concerns about our filtering come up in the spring. And we had already been working with a new filtering methodology that security had released with teachers would contact us, and we would then add that website to the block list ourselves. If a parent though has something that they want blocked, they can either contact us and we can do that, or on the next slide, we have the parent portal, and they can do that there.
And it works vice versa as well. If you need something unblocked, they can also contact.
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Or do it through the parent portal. So I'll move on to the parent portal. So security at home, this is why we bought security. So there's a lot of filtering solutions out there. You know, we have GoGuardian for the classroom. GoGuardian at the same time had a filter, just like security. It was a full package of classroom and filter together. And then same thing, security had classroom and filter. But GoGuardian's classroom tool was much better, so we moved GoGuardian for that. And then security offered the parent portal. And that was the reason we went with that originally, because it gives parents the ability to manage these devices when they're at home. It gives them the ability to be able to set a schedule, so it turns off every night at 7 o'clock. Or to hit a pause button and turn off the Chromebook whenever they want to. That you see what your child's doing, you see the websites they're going to be able to block or allow websites. So that was the reason why we went with security in the first place, was to give parents that ability to be able to manage these devices at home, because it's so important when you have a device at home, even like your phone, to be able to manage those devices at home and keep your kids safe. So Security Aware is another product that we added during COVID. So what Security Aware does is it uses AI to watch for any kind of terminology or searches that kids do that could show there's some kind of risk. And so, as our counselors can attest to, this works well because we get a lot of alerts that get sent to our counselors so that they can go and check in with their kids and make sure they're safe. And if it seems like, you know, if a student is searching for multiple things and it seems like it's going in a really wrong direction and something may be imminent, security will actually call the police for us. And so that way, if something looks like it could happen, they will make a call. So it's a great service. It helps a lot of kids. And it allows our kids to feel safe while they're on a device, because they know that, you know, if they are feeling depressed or something bad's going on, you know, their counselors are there, because their counselors are going to reach out to them and work with them. So these are all of the layers. We have all these different layers, and all together, it gives us a secure, safe environment for our kids on Chromebooks. And we take pride in the fact that we work hard to make these safe for our kids. I feel like these are some of the safest devices in the whole county. It's, you know, that's how it works. Any questions?
So you go to the next slide.
I will.
So we do definitely want to acknowledge that we have resources for family education in this capacity. There is a resource hub on our district website that offers district support, access to tools, articles, guidance. It is a work in progress, I would say, as things move and change over time. We need to do that as well. So that is something that we know has to continue to happen on our end. That providing the resources, including to our community schools, which we have new to our district, which are great places to incorporate a lot of parent education with regard to Chromebook use. And it expands our parent and family education around technology use and digital safety as a whole. The resources continue to be built. We sent out various communication just this week and have made planned efforts to continue to do that, whether it's from us or whether it's from the schools themselves, to keep reminding families about these things. So beyond the school walls, continuing to support our families there. As I mentioned, we have the webpage that is a great go-to really quickly if somebody has some questions they need answered. It might be in the evening when they can't contact anybody at school. The access to the securely home controls are on there as well. Again, is a nice location for people to go after hours and get some answers that they would like. Acknowledging we are partners with our families. While we can't control what happens outside of school, we can do several things. We can help equip our families with knowledge and tools that they seek. We can help create consistent expectations across the environments, and we can offer support for any challenging situations that families or students may experience. And we do wanna do that, you know, we encourage people always, talk to us, the Ed Services team, if you need some help at a school site, if you have questions or concerns that are seemingly in one grade or one classroom. We have an open door, please come talk to us or the school site, we're happy to help if we know what the concerns are. And closing up today here, the last piece is that we did want to include some relevant board policies. They are linked here because they're 4 different policies, and you can go in and view those if you haven't yet. Again, in the boxes, we give a little summary of what these are, and ones that pertain to this in particular would be technology and instruction, internet acceptable use, perhaps employee technology use, student technology use. And with that, we have finished our pieces. We thank you for listening. I hope there was some interesting information. In closing, we just want to share our appreciation to Tisha Hayes and Rebecca Compton once again for their input and conversation while we were preparing this presentation. And I welcome you, board, to discuss the presentation at this time.
Thank
Can I
you.
just make one comment?
Please.
Better late than never, right? I personally was surprised to see that the use of Go Guardian at secondary, in particular high school, was not as strong as it maybe could or should be, because we know teenagers, right? And so it'd be nice if there was better support in the use of Go Guardian from secondary teachers. And I am impressed.
I wanna add,
I'm sorry, I am impressed by Securely, that sounds, I wish I was a parent in the district right now so I could, try it out, but, it sounds amazing. Yeah, and thank you for all your work that you've done, everybody that's been involved in this, I appreciate it. Go ahead, Tisha.
yeah, thank you for the work put into the presentation, I appreciate that. And I also want to say that, I was surprised as a high school teacher to think that, that Go Guardian, the usage declined in high school over middle school. And I understand that, like, perhaps seniors could be more independent, but I'm with Gail. I think that if teachers are using computers in the classroom, you want to you want to ensure that students are using it in the ways that it was designed, and it's a real temptation just to be able to open another tab and do something else. So, yeah, I would encourage our teachers in the high schools to use it.
I think one of the thoughts I had that probably stands out the most, and I'll be honest, my main concern when it comes to Chromebooks is in the elementary years. I understand that as they get older, that I see a greater need for them. But if in fact they are used 30 minutes or less in the elementary years, and I do recognize the importance of learning how to test on Chromebooks, and I see that as valid. But if they are in fact used 30 minutes or less, is it worth the expense, that we're putting forth to provide Chromebooks for students? And then also, is it worth the risk of the misuse? Because I understand that we have things in place to protect, but I still see great potential for misuse, even with all the protection in place. So I just want to throw that out there as I'm gonna stand by. I don't see a great need for the use of Chromebooks in the elementary years, aside from importance of being comfortable with them when it comes time for state testing. I feel like there might be a better way to prepare students, without the expense and the potential for misuse.
Please.
I think, it sounds like what I heard in the presentation is that with the littles, they might be doing stations, and depending on the reading or the math program that's been adopted, there is an online to help reinforce or reteach something that, in the small group with the teacher, that student needs extra practice with, and it allows them, as they move around their groups, to do that. I was actually pleasantly surprised that the Chromebook usage was as low as it was, because I was honestly, I thought, oh, we're gonna get like, they're on it for like 2 hours a day, and, that would have been a real problem, but I just wonder if the Chromebooks help to support reading and math skill
No, I
development.
definitely was pleased to see the the reported low amount of usage in the
Mhm.
classroom.
Yeah.
Again, just,
But if you go back to like olden days, like when I was in
Yeah.
elementary school,
I still
how did I
was-
learn to do, reading and math, and and I think I came out just fine,
Well, yeah,
So I hear that argument as well, like, let's go back to.
I appreciate the research that was done, but, I've also spent some time looking at that as well, and I still have great concern for the use of technology when, in the younger years. I think there's effective ways to accomplish that without those things.
I think your point about not necessarily, about questioning whether we need, there was a big rush 10 years ago or so for everybody to go one-to-one, right? Where it was the big thing, one-to-one, every kid's gonna have a device. And every district went that way. But it's worth questioning, like, if they're only using it this briefly, does it make more sense to go back to having, the computer card? Or, one set for a couple of classrooms, so that they can, access it for specific activities without necessarily the same cost, and where we have really, really clear control over what they're doing with it. Because there's a fine line, right? We need students who progressively are more and more comfortable with using technology as a tool without creating students who require technology to solve the problems they face in their day-to-day. And my big concern is that, and it doesn't look like we're doing that next thing. Philosophically, my worry is that we make sure that we are helping to grow students who don't rely on technology in a way that if it were to not be there, it would negatively affect them. Yeah. You were.
I probably have a different take on because I'm a student that came through without technology and struggled. Struggle doesn't even start to describe. Had I had the support of being able to repeat what I was not understanding, because the computer was knowing what I wasn't understanding, I think I'd have been more successful. But I didn't have that. And so by the time I got to 9th, 10th grade, don't even look at me if it was something to do with math or spelling. I couldn't do it. I didn't want you to try to teach me now. So I support the extra support that it looks like the Chromebook programs are allowing teachers to do with monitoring which student needs more help and specifically what help that student needs.
I totally hear it. I don't think anyone is saying that, they don't bring some benefit. I also think that we have better, with technology on the educator side, I think we have a much better system for tracking and supporting students. Even if it doesn't necessarily include putting them in front of a educational software. But I hear what you're saying, absolutely. There's definitely utility to some of those educational programs.
I I hear your argument with, you know, being able to monitor where they are academically. And I think there's a valid point to that. I also believe most of these kids are super competent using a device, regardless of whether or not they have a Chromebook. And I can't say 100% of kids, but I would venture to guess most kids feel pretty comfortable with a device, regardless of whether or not they have a, you know, Chico Unified issue Chromebook. Like, I could be wrong.
Right.
Yeah, I want to say that, again, I want to, bounce off what Rebecca said. It is an important question to say, what is the need at the elementary school level? I do understand, rotating through stations, and that, I mean, that has a place. But also there's, research that talks about how when, text is being replaced electronically, that has a negative impact on kids. And I also want to remind us of the student who spoke, Ms. Ward, I think it was last time, how quickly things can go from, you know, from bad to worse. And, you know, we're seeing research from around the world talking about how, you know, addictive technology is, and I just think that I think it would be wise to really evaluate whether at that elementary school level, like, I don't think preparing our third graders to be able to test is a good reason to try to, you know, to have Chromebook usage. First of all, our youngsters are, it's kind of like they're native speakers to technology. You know, they're able to do so much more than we did at their respective ages, because the technology wasn't native, you know, when we were younger. And frankly, to have kids be able to navigate the computers for standardized testing, you know, this is something that could be done a week or two ahead of time to, I mean, I firmly believe that. So the testing, having kids be, you know, familiar with computers for testing, I don't think is a compelling use of, a compelling reason to use technology at all. That said, you know, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I understand it has its place, but I do think that it's important for us to really look at the idea of, you know, is it adequate just to have a classroom set of computers, and like Tom said, then it would be much more controlled usage. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Do the elementary students, they probably have a Chromebook assigned to them, but do they leave them in the classroom if they don't need to take them for homework?
They do.
They do? Okay.
They stay in the classroom.
Which would be impossible at secondary, because what they see 210 kids a day,
Right.
or every other day,
Right.
every 2 days, yeah. And we used to do the Chrome carts in the classroom, and that was,
Probably chaos.
It had its own set of problems, for sure.
yes.
What I'm hearing is we're all interested, it sounds like, on seeing what kind of strategies there are to prevent an over-reliance on technology. So maybe some more digging into that in the future would be appropriate. What supports can we give kids so they don't feel like turning on a computer is the first best option?
Well, without like singling any one school, I mean, I think part of the reason this has been brought to discussion was because there are some school sites that are allowing students to bring home their Chromebooks. So without, you know, making general rules for every school site, I mean, would there be a place to sort of, I don't know if policy is the right word, or guideline for home use and the idea of keeping
Take home.
Chromebooks
Mhm.
on campus, with the idea that I'm not sure how that would look.
Can we go back to the slide regarding existing board policies? See if maybe it falls under any of those, like under the student technology use paper, we talked about,
Like I personally, I love that the after-school program is moving towards less technology, but is there really any need, for technology in the after-school program? I mean, my understanding, and this is just with talking with various, parents, in the district it's often, or I should say often, it is used at times for like a reward. And I understand that is not an appropriate use, and I believe that it's not appropriate use of a Chromebook, but is there a way to kind of just eliminate that possibility altogether?
You mean using it as a reward?
Or just use of Chromebooks in the after-school program?
I mean, I do think there's a space, cause a lot of people do use after school to complete homework, right? That's,
Is that how all
that's a good question, how is it used?
My
Again,
understanding is that this year in the after-school program, it's used for homework if they have to complete it in those 4th through 6th grades, and then it's put away and they move on to other things for their homework hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are they
If there's a
typically given
homework
this
hour,
window of
right,
time is
Right,
what
they're
you
given a
have?
window of time, and then.
And do they have access to Go Guardian in the after-school program?
I would think,
I have to double check on
Wait,
that,
that's a
when we
good
started, I'll double
question.
check.
Okay.
that's a good question.
and is that, standardized across all sites? Is that rule of, the homework hour?
The after-school
like that?
program,
Yeah.
I believe they are, yes, because we run the same program on our sites, yes.
Thank you. So this is, an informational only item, we're not gonna take action, but we'll have a chance later on to discuss whether we wanna update any of our board policies regarding this, so we can take action at this time. I'm not trying to cut discussion short, just make sure, because there's a lot of good stuff coming out of it, I think there are follow-up conversations about that. We might have more to say, but I do wanna check in real fast with our public and to see if there is any public comment on this, but I thought there might be. Yeah, is it okay? Take a little break and do some Q&A?
Okay, so just some thoughts as the presentation was going on. I am actually kind of surprised at the parent perception of Chromebook usage, especially at the secondary level where they're reporting, to me it's a high percent of less than 30 minutes daily on non-school activities. I have the privilege of being home with my kids after school, so I'm able to be with them as they start their homework. Typically while I am cleaning up the kitchen, getting dinner ready, things like that, they are within eyesight. And I know I can look over and they will have a smile on their face, and I tell them, you look too happy to be doing homework. And it's definitely at a higher rate than 30 minutes a day. And trying to remember what the questions were. I remember when I took the survey 2 times for my 2 students, I feel the verbiage was a little confusing in the questions and how to answer them. So I feel that, again, personally, that's not an adequate reflection. Because they're on their daily for IXL, there's something at the high school level, I think, that's equivalent to that. That I know with one of my students, they could be doing it and they get distracted and then do something else, and I'm coming to check on them and they're doing the, the quick X out or tabbing over that they've learned on their own to go back to what they're supposed to be doing. And so, I mean, obviously that's a problem, and that does lead to being on the Chromebook for more than 30 minutes a day doing non-school activities. Then there's the discovery of YouTube. Personally, with the Chromebooks, I think giving our kids that education regarding technology is a great thing. But I often tell people I have a love-hate relationship with technology because it's very useful, but it also gets abused. For our family personally, I feel my children were exposed to the internet sooner than we would have liked them to, which has created at times these addictive behaviors, and we've had to have discussions of like, if you can't hear me when I'm calling you and you're zoned in on your computer, that's showing a sign of an addictive behavior because you're closing off everything around you. So again, while I can appreciate having this technology for our kids, they're still in that developmental area where they don't have the tools necessarily personally to know when to cut themselves off. And we know as adults, like, we struggle with being on our cell phone and knowing when to put it down. So how can we expect kids to have those more mature behaviors and having to learning how to navigate and how to put self boundaries and things like that in order to have these Chromebooks at hand. And we're a family where we have a desktop, we have tablets and things like that. But for some reason, when it comes to their Chromebooks, there's an overuse of what they're doing on them above the school activities.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And we looked earlier at the link to the resources site that we have. And I'm just curious, are there supports on there for parents to have those kind of conversations about how to set limits and, because that doesn't mean, I don't want to impinge on, the parent-child relationship, but on the other hand, these are our devices, and I do want to make sure the parents have all the support they need, because those can be hard conversations to set firm lines with their kids about, yeah, it's yours, it's from school, but also it's not really yours, and here's what we can do to make sure that your use of that is healthy. And not every parent is equipped to have those conversations in a really good way.
Well, and I think it also could involve all of technology, like you mentioned the home devices as well. How do you have conversations about the home devices? Even if the Chromebook isn't there, it's still a potential thing for kids' attention to be given to in this conversation. My kids are older now, but there was appropriate time when that was happening.
Do we have any sort of curriculum or programs that specifically teach healthy technology use to our students? Like, is that part of any of our SEL packages?
I know that some of our in our classes, they teach some things, but I don't know if we have a particular curriculum that does that.
Yeah, I have a permanent curriculum. It might be embedded in some other places, SEL.
As we talked about, right, part of our mission is to, help raise and educate students who have all these soft skills when they head out in the world, and this is definitely one of them. Interesting to see what resources we do have and what we might be able to embed in things we already do, so that kids can be having that conversation both at home and at school. Is my urge to look at my phone right now, the healthiest and best option I have at this point?
Interestingly, last spring, and Tisha, if you're listening here, you'll know what I'm talking about. Over at Pleasant Valley High School, the students give presentations. I forget, Doug Hussey's class, I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
The capstone AP class, and there was one about, that was student generated in terms of kind of, she wanted to explore life with less technology, and she at that time was referring to just her phone, or those things that were with her all the time. But I think it does go back to that balance, that idea of balance as well, mixed with things, especially as they get older.
A lot to think about, for sure.
Is there any other public?
Thank you, please.
So that was my question, thank you for asking that. I wanted to know what the school district does to provide students with that knowledge about what their digital footprint looks like, searching criteria, making sure that they're not running into traps where they're gonna be potentially exposed to material that they shouldn't be looking at, and safety and how that relates to their own mental health. So I would love to see something developed, and I think curriculum's the appropriate word for that. It should be more than just something that's available on the website. I think it should be something that's pushed into the classrooms, and all students that have access to this Chromebook, regardless of their age, should have that age-appropriate training for that. And then the second question I had, what kind of takes us back to the parent concerns that were brought up that kind of prompted this conversation, specifically regarding the elementary, the youngers, because I have a younger, I believe that the parent concern was regarding, an older classmate telling the student that they could change their birth date to access their Chromebook. And I forget, I have to go back for sure, but I wondered, if students have their own Chromebook, how that wouldn't hit some kind of a firewall, or some kind of a thing saying, hey, the birth date you're providing doesn't match what's on your profile per se, and having that be kind of a red flag. So I wondered if that's available and how that happened, I guess.
Good question. I saw them, they're taking some notes, so I'm sure we'll get some feedback on that, though I don't. Tisha, please.
I believe what happened was, that's my memory of it too, is an older student taught a younger student how to change their birth date so that they could have different YouTube access. And so what I'm understanding you to say is that if a younger student who is being managed by Chico Unified School District, how are they able to get around that filter, if they're able, to do that. So that is my understanding, is that was one of the concerns. And just to add on to what was said earlier, all the students in our district, there isn't a student in our district that has a fully formed brain, because, brain development goes on until, into the 20s. And so I just think that as a district, we have to be, have a greater sense of responsibility in, making sure that we're using technology, not just appropriately, but judiciously, I'd say. And again, there's research that shows that learning things digitally has a different pathway in the brain than seeing it in text. And I just think I appreciate all of the security that goes into providing the equipment. I am appreciative of that, but it just, especially at that elementary school level, especially the very young level, the question is, to me, is it doesn't matter how much security there is there the need? That's really the question for me. Is there a need to have TK through 3, using Chromebooks in their classrooms at all? And I would love to hear more about that from those teachers, because I didn't teach TK through 3, but I will say that as a freshman teacher, we didn't have, most of my career, we did not have Chromebooks for every student. And, we had to still teach our kids how to research, how to get valid sources, how to word process. And that meant, the English department having to schedule time in the library where there was a computer lab. And we were still able to meet all of those learning goals that were English, in the English framework. And we didn't have one-to-one computer usage. And so even at the freshman level, I just know that there's so much that goes on with technology that has a downside that I just want us to really take a careful look at use of technology, especially in those lower grades.
I definitely agree with what you're saying, and I think we talked about the topic of, we kind of related it in our session prior to meeting with for example, nutrition. I mean, when it comes to providing food and meals for our students, we're obviously going to make sure it's a safe situation, that we're providing food in a safe way, and we're following all the protocol to do so. but we also want to provide like the best quality, right? When it comes to nutrition or education, and I just think that, I agree with Tisha, I mean, is this the best practice, or is this the most effective way to teach? And I think it's worth looking at. I mean, obviously there's the safety component, and that should be sort of just an obvious thing, that we are making sure it's safe. I mean, I would hope that that's just, you know, happening. But also, is this the best way to educate? And I really believe, like, you know, this, similar to when we were talking about cell phone use, it's not something, it's like, where it's so black and white, like, no computers, but more of a step approach. Like, obviously, like in elementary, we're using it in very limited amounts with high levels of supervision, and it's, you know, as they grow and mature, and hopefully, can discern, appropriate uses that can grow, as they make their way through their education in 12th grade.
There's a lot to chew on there. At this point, do we have any other discussion from the board?
I just want to thank Rebecca again for agendizing it. I think it's a really important topic, and I'm grateful that she had this put on the agenda, and I'm grateful to, you know, Tina and John and Tim, everybody who did the research, and, you know, Pedro and Heather, everybody who put in the time to put this together. I'm very appreciative of it. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you, Steph. All right. I think
There is one public comment there listed on the
Oh.
link. I'm sorry, that came in.
Erica, do you have access to that?
I don't know what it's doing. I'm good on it.
I love that.
So appropriate.
Okay, meeting's over.
Adjourned.
What's gonna do with that other one?
I'll text her and let her know that just went off.
So does that mean that FEMA's down as well?
Everything follows.
Yes, okay.
It's going down.
Well, let's take notes, think about that.
What my question was be is, do we have anything in board policy that allows the district to teach school board members how to turn their computers on and do searches and get on and off of websites? You know, for those of us that weren't born in the digital age, navigating how to do research and get the most effective information to ourselves is so frustrating. At least this board member gets so frustrated, and then I have to bother Erica, and then I have to
No,
Like in college, they audit classes, maybe you could sit in and audit the class.
Right.
Somebody's doing that.
That's what I need.
And the public comment was fairly adorable.
What was it?
The public comment, it's a, letter that reads, there you go, Dear Chico USD School Board, included a letter from a student who wanted to share her opinion about wanting to take a Chromebook home in order to practice her skills. And then there's a post answer, I want to take my computer home, I love to work.
I try to make it work for me so that it's providing me with additional help.
just waiting to see if we can get Keisha back for you, the last point on her agenda.
Yeah, I'm communicating with her. We should have some like elevator music. Get a little punchy. I'm sorry.
Are you Brazilian?
Did you know that? Girl from Ipanema, exactly right.
You got that, you're all right. I'm asking so many questions, but I also don't wanna talk about anything that's not on the agenda. Maybe the ought to be a section they did is just, time to celebrate random wins from the week. Like I would love to hear from Peter and Heather about what's going well so far this year. But not on the agenda, guys.
No pressure, Heather.
Or about what happens when a tree service takes out the power line. Tree service, when tree leaves, when the tree service took out the power line.
Yeah, I had people there.
Why, you have people that are aware.
The people that came out of their houses going, what's this in our house? And the light. Sorry, the reports we got were not what we said.
Yeah. Can't believe it's already that time.
CSBA conference. I will have
That.
The computer's like, yeah. So let's look at the log files on it, I wrote the time down so we can look at the log files and see why. So it makes a record of, hey, I shut down, this is why, so I wrote the time down, so we can go back to the logs and look at that time. I need to sit closer to it, because they behave more when I'm there.
Yeah, right, we just touch the side there, like car mechanic, They bring it in.
Hello! Long time no see.
I had to change the audio settings.
You're back.
We're back. We've been here the whole time. Are we,
I've been here the whole time.
perfect. Are we streaming still? Have we been?
Yes.
Good, all right. In that case, give the thanks to our public public out there in TV land for bearing with us while we got that figured out. Go ahead and move on to our last order of business, if that's okay with you guys?
Yep.
All right, it is related. Under board member request agendized items, at the behest of several board members, I did go ahead and put on a request to talk about the technology board policies. So if we want to continue this discussion with an eye towards codifying any changes, we can do that. I don't have a particular one in mind. Again, I put this on the agenda just so that if the data we received today, the presentation and the feedback from the public warranted it, we could choose to have a discussion about board policies related to technology. I think it's worth having at this point, after what we've heard and some of the board member discussion, that we probably ought to continue the discussion as an action item, with an eye towards really being very careful about what our technology policy says and how those technology board policies are being turned into AR and actually being implemented on school sites. So that's my ask.
So we'd be looking for a motion to add this to a future board meeting.
Yep.
And then what I would like to do just is, let's not name the board meeting tonight. And then that way we can talk to staff and figure out, how we get the information to you. You can look at, the board, the current policies and things, and then we can figure out, okay, maybe the October regular or the November regular makes sense to have the future discussion.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, I just want to ask if my ask was clear enough. Does the board have any questions or clarification of what I'm trying to put on the agenda? Great, awesome. As ever, is there public comment about this item? See a couple thumbs up, but no other comments. That's awesome. Okay, in that case, yeah, do we have a motion regarding this item? Since it is mine, I'm going to go ahead and move it.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Landon and Conkin respectively. Again, this is going to, is there any further discussion about this? And again, as always, we can't go into super specifics because the goal is just to put it on the agenda, not to have to debate tonight. That said, any other talk about this one?
No.
Okay, in that case, we're going to do a roll call vote. We are again going to start with member Hayes and then come down the line this way.
Hayes, aye.
Olson, aye.
Conkin, aye.
Lando, aye?
Robinson, aye.
It is unanimous. All right. Again, we did talk about a specific meeting, but staff understands that we'd rather see this sooner rather than later so we can make sure we're having this discussion. Awesome. Thank you very much. That is the final item on our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn to closed session?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I will second that. Once again, can we go ahead and vote on adjournment?